Evening. We're at the Farmgate restaurant here in the iconic English market in the middle of Cork City for the start of Culture Night, which is when cities all over the country are opening up civic buildings and buildings of historic significance to the public. So as you would expect, the English market will feature fairly strongly in that. But I'm anxious to update people on a number of things. First of all, in relation to my defence brief, two issues. First of all, Irish troops in the UN mission on the Golan Heights, what's called the UNDOF mission. Over the last number of weeks, people will have read about a pretty dramatic change of circumstances on the ground on the Golan Heights, where the civil war in Syria has been directly threatening UN peacekeepers, including Irish troops. I've made it very clear to the UN that if Ireland is going to stay as part of that mission, and we want to stay as part of that mission because it's an important mission, we need to see structural change to that mission that essentially de-risks the exposure that peacekeepers are confronted with in terms of dangers coming from the Syrian opposition forces in the civil war. 2 weeks ago, UN troops were actively being attacked by an organization called the Al-Nusra Front, who are essentially a Syrian offshoot of Al-Qaeda. This mission was never meant to be part of a civil war type situation, and so it needs to be changed structurally, which is exactly what's happening at the moment. This evening, I expect that we will get a statement from the UN Security Council confirming quite significant structural changes to this mission, whereby UN posts that would have been in Syrian territory up until now, we are deploying troops from those posts and have brought them over to the Israeli-controlled area of the Golan Heights, where those troops are continuing to observe in a peacekeeping mission and fashion. When that statement from the UN is confirmed, I hope to be able to confirm that Ireland will continue to have an involvement in this mission into the future. We've worked hard on this. I am not going to send Irish troops into a civil war situation, but I do want Ireland to be involved in a peacekeeping and peace observation mission, which is properly managed and structured to respond and change according to the circumstances on the ground. And I'm glad to say it looks as if that's happening now. The second issue that I know some people have been contacting me about in relation to the defence brief is the issue that's known in the Defence Forces as the 21-year rule. This is essentially a requirement on privates and corporals to step down from the Defence Forces if they've been serving for 21 years or more. There's an ongoing negotiation within the conciliation and arbitration structures in the Defence Forces to try and find a fair, flexible and balanced outcome here that can do two things. One, can ensure that we don't lose a skill set within the Defence Forces that we need and has been built up over many years, but also to ensure that we have the right age profile, so that when we send troops out to places like the Golan Heights or to southern Lebanon or to places in Africa, where we need to have fit, strong, flexible, adaptable young men and women, that we actually have the right age profile to ensure that their safety and the safety of their colleagues is prioritised. So we will try to get the balance right on this, and the conciliation body is working towards a conclusion, and I don't think it's appropriate for me to wade in on the solution until the formal conciliation structures and processes make recommendations. But I hope we'll achieve a compromise that everybody can live with. Okay, there's been a lot of traffic on social media in relation to the economic figures that have been published in the last 24 hours. They're really good news, I'm glad to say. It now looks as if our economy is going to grow by at least 4.5%, maybe even 5% by the end of this year. And don't forget, back in April, people were predicting 2.4%. At the end of July and August, people were predicting maybe 3%. Now it's 4.5% to 5%. In essence, what's happening here is an acceleration in recovery, which is hugely welcome. From a job creation point of view, from a confidence point of view, we see consumer spending is up by 1.8%. We see construction activity is up significantly. We see export figures are up significantly. And it's not just big foreign direct investment companies that are actually increasing their exports, it's indigenous Irish companies as well. So it's both GDP and GNP that is up. So there's a lot of cause for optimism. It means that the budget isn't going to have to be anything as harsh as people were expecting. Yes, we have to make a €2 billion adjustment, but that adjustment now looks like it's going to be made as a result of growth and increased tax revenue, as opposed to having to increase taxes or reduce expenditure. So this is positive, but let's not get carried away because the government is determined now to maintain this growth pattern and to spend the hard-earned money that families have made sacrifices for over the last 4 or 5 years to good effect to make sure that this is a sustainable recovery that remains intact. In relation to agriculture, today was a really big day for the dairy industry. Dairy Gold, who are Ireland's second biggest dairy producer, announced an investment package of €120 million. The Taoiseach was down for it. Richard Bruton was down for it also. In both Mallow and Mitchelstown, 85 million in Mallow and another 35 million or so in Mitchelstown. This is the industry investing for the future, putting in place the capacity to deal with the increased volumes of milk that Irish farmers are going to produce when quotas are abolished at the end of March of next year. So in 6 months' time, the expansion of the dairy industry that we have been planning for the last 4 years and investing in is actually going to happen, and it's going to be a really exciting period for the dairy industry in Ireland. We may see a slight weakening of dairy prices in advance of that, but those prices will come back again because global demand in terms of consumption of dairy product will continue to increase year on year at a significant rate. So that's the good news. Next week also is probably the biggest week of the year for agriculture. We've got the National Ploughing Championships, which I'm looking forward to going to. I know there's been a lot of tension in agriculture and in farming, particularly relating to beef prices this year. And so I'm looking forward to meeting as many beef farmers as I can next week to discuss with them what we're doing as a government and what I'm doing as a minister to try and ensure that we restructure the beef market to make sure that farmers see an increased percentage of margin that they are due as a significant player in the supply chain for beef. So look, I'm not going to go into all of the things we're doing on beef at the moment. We're setting up producer organizations, we're increasing the marketing fund, we're opening up new markets, we're dealing with issues around cross-border trade and a lot besides. But I'll meet probably hundreds of farmers at the Ploughing Championships next week, and I look forward to having that conversation with them. Finally, can I just say thank you to everybody who interacts with me on social media. The next time we do a video, we'll do a preamble for the budget, if you like, particularly around agriculture, because we're going to try and do some really strategic things this year. I'm still getting a lot of messages, particularly around animal welfare issues, and again in the budget, I hope we'll be able to do some really constructive things that people will welcome. But in the meantime, thanks again for the interaction. We do take your views very seriously. Thanks.